Metabank get renamed.
I'm going to go ahead and call us to order. Thank you all for coming back. I always think it takes a lot of bravery to come back for the second session of budgeting. And so, but we will go ahead and get started. And Monty's going to give us a little munis deposition or demonstration. So we have some idea what we're doing up here.
Good afternoon. On your laptop, you should have Munis already open. If at any point in time you need help, I'll be here this afternoon to help you out. I don't know how much you'll need it, but I'll just give you just a quick demo. So if you were to close out of it, as you can see on my desktop here, there's the Munis icon. I tried to put them kind of top and center for you. So you can just double click on that if you need to relaunch it. That will bring you to this main dashboard screen. And I'm just going to show just a couple of items over here on the left that you can use. So underneath of budget, I'm going to expand that. There's something there called central budget entry. If you click on central budget entry, it's going to take you to kind of a search screen. And I'm going to click on the advanced search button up on the towards the upper left. And here in the department section, we can click on the magnifying glass and then the drop-down list. If you're not catching up with me, I'll be around to help you out. And then from here, you would choose whatever department you want. Okay, I believe the sheriff's office is up. I don't know that you're actually going to be diving into this for their portion, but I'm just going to choose sheriff as an example. Okay, and okay. So here for this budget then, you can kind of scroll through. Some departments may put other items, attached files and whatnot. A lot of them probably don't have additional documentation, but you can kind of scroll through these. This department, the sheriff's office, has enough entries that it looks like I've got a page 2. So down at the bottom, if I click on the 2, it takes me to the second page. And I want to point out at the top here, it took us kind of to a second tab. So we're just in Internet Explorer, and so I have 2 tabs. So I could leave this one open, go back to that main home screen, and I again could click on Central Budget Entry to open up another tab. Again, I could click on Advanced to do my search for another department. So you could have multiple departments open at once if you want. I'll just open one more department up here.
Monty, you might want to filter it to expenses only also.
Okay, thank you for that tip. Okay, so what Kim pointed out is for some of these departments, the sheriff's ones in particular, it will show us revenues and expenses. So if we wanted to filter out and just show expenses, in this situation I chose the jail department, and I changed this account type here towards the bottom left to expense, and then I'll click on OK. So to my point earlier, now I have a second tab here with the jail up, central budget entry here in my second tab. It's kind of, once I choose that department, it's kind of hard to see which department is which. I'm going to go back to my home screen.
Tell me how you got to the expenses again, which this Meg?
Yep, so back on one of my tabs here, when I go into, click on Advanced Search.
Yep.
Down here in the bottom left, there's...
Type. Oh, it's on the far side. Okay, thank you.
And if you get multiple of these tabs open, it's going to be easy to get confused on which department is on which tab. So back on this first original tab at the dashboard, you have a link for org code listing. If you click on that, you'll see the different org codes and what department those codes are for. I don't know if I should jump into Account Central. I'm gonna at least mention it, and then it's up to you if I go into that. But if you click on Account Central, you can search for all previous purchases. So you can drill into invoices if you want, or just look at the amount spent per line item, if you will. So there's a bunch of information in there if you so choose to do that. And if you want a demo of that, I can give a quick demo.
And Monty, you can link to that if you're in central budget entry.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to that
Okay.
and just click on the blue
Yeah.
account name, and that's gonna take you directly to Account Central
I'm
or
gonna
whatever
pick
account you want.
something else here. I will just pick office supplies, let's say. Yep, so good point, thank you, Kim. So here, I just chose office supplies out of the sheriff's office, right? So you can see what they budget per year the past couple of years. And down below here, you could drill, if you click on this details, you can drill into the actual invoices. Up here at the top is where you choose different previous years.
And you got there by clicking on accounts?
I got there by,
You click
in
on,
the, on this description tab here in central budget entry. If you click on one of those, it will launch another tab, which is actually Account Central. And then from there, you can, again, drill further into actual invoices if you want. To actually see the invoice, you click on details, but just even at this screen, you can see purchases, amounts, the vendor, that kind of stuff. Anything else you can think of, Kim?
You're not giving us a test afterwards, right?
And I will be here, so just raise your hand if you want me to come through and help you with anything.
All right. Any other questions for Monty? Everybody but me is an expert up here, so we're ready.
All right. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. All right, so then according to our agenda, we are going to go into presentations regarding the new positions that are requested. And we're going to start with the sheriff, which includes the jail. And I understand Sheriff Milstead is next door and is going to make his way over. Like magic, he appears.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mike Milstead, your sheriff. I have a number of my command staff here to answer any questions or kind of explain briefly what the position requests are. Grant expiring position, a reclass, and so to start with, I have Captain Joe Bosman, who will speak to a couple of the items, and then I'll be in the room on standby. Chief Deputy Gromer will follow up Captain Bosman, and then Captain Walsh is on Zoom, should you have any questions about the reclass. So we'll start with Captain Bosman.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Joe Bosman with the Sheriff's Office. I'm going to touch real briefly on the grant position that we're asking to absorb into the Sheriff's Office budget for 2021. The new position request has a lot of the details that are into it. This is a federal COPS grant that was awarded to us mid-2018, and it's a 2-year grant. It's set to expire the end of 2020. This position allows us to increase our role in the drug task force from 1 investigator, that's been only 1 there for many, many years, to 2. And that is a huge increase for us at the contribution with the amount of drug crimes that are occurring in our area as well. To put that in perspective, the Sioux Falls Police Department has 11 investigators on that task force. South Dakota Division of Criminal Investigation has 2 investigators on that task force. So for us, being able to put a contribution of 2 into that is much beneficial. Also, a lot of the drug seizures that have been occurring that the task force focuses on is pretty high-end seizures, main drug dealers, but that doesn't mean that there still isn't drug cases where lower-end users need to be investigated, and the smaller drug crimes also need to be looked at. So by allowing 2 investigators to cover those crimes in the county, can divvy up that area as well. The reason this one might be a little bit higher, if you notice the cost for this position, is because the grant allowed us to hire a replacement. They understand that when you hire with a grant, you don't hire someone brand new, never been a cop, and say, congratulations, you're a drug investigator. But what it does allow is we can hire someone new to replace the backfill that was selected for that drug investigator spot. So what it is this person, this deputy that has been hired back in 2018 for this grant position, is now at this salary pay grade that we would need to absorb if awarded this general budget fund for this.
Questions?
Okay.
All right.
I think, do we want to go to, should we go to Mike Walsh so he can talk about the reclass real quick while we're on the sheriff's office budget?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having us. We are sitting pretty good staffing-wise, so that's why no requests for any additional personnel. The one area that we seem to be lacking, and the sheriff and Captain Bosman and I tried to address it this past year, trying to think of an innovative way to maybe fix the problem, but we just couldn't come up with something that worked really well, and that's supervision on weekends. We sit really strong with supervision on nights based on the reclass you gave us last year, and it's been very effective. The supervision on nights with our young deputies who are very capable and motivated, they just don't have the experience all the time to make the right calls during like an in progress call. But the one area where we're lacking is weekend days. During the week, the sheriff, the chief deputy, Captain Bosman, Captain Phillips, and I, all of the investigations division sergeants, we're all on duty and available pretty easily, and most of us listen to the radio in our offices in the event something's happening. But on weekends, if the sergeant isn't on, because we only have one sergeant per day shift, then a lot of times they can run into some issues with some in progress stuff. So what I'm asking for is just to reclass one of our deputy positions to a sergeant position, and I believe Captain Bosman had the specific amount, but I believe it was right around $9,000 to do that. And what that will do is give us the ability to have supervision essentially 24 hours a day for these deputies. That position will cover the weekend days instead of being assigned to a specific blue or yellow shift. They will just be weekend days, and we'll make it a policy that a sergeant always be on duty. In the event that one takes vacation, we have to ensure that the other one is on duty.
Questions about that? Commissioner Karski.
How many sergeants do you have that are, how many sergeants are there supervising patrols right now? Basically,
within the patrol, yes, sir. Within the patrol division itself, there are 6 sergeants. There's 2 per night shift. And if you're not familiar with how our shifts work, we have blue and yellow. We work 12-hour shifts. And so we have 2 blue night shift, 2 blue yellow shift, and then during the day, 1 per blue shift and 1 per yellow shift. And so we have a total of 6. And then in investigation, civils, and warrants, there are 3 additional ones. But as far as supervising deputies in the field, we have a total of 6.
so this would give you a 7th.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
They saved the best for last, huh?
Well, I don't know about that. That's pretty generous. I can address the 2 jail requests. The first is to fund a position that's coming off of grant funding. That one was implemented about a year ago through the MacArthur grant. That person was programmed into the original plans for the jail expansion. With the addition of the grant funding, we were just able to get that person instituted sooner rather than later. So as that one comes off a grant, we'd be asking to fill that position at a corporal level, basically to supervise the jail programs, the 24/7 program, the electronic monitoring program, continue to work with pretrial, and work out of that program section of the new jail. The second position is for additional staff at our front desk area. That's a customer service related position, and what we see in that position is a very high volume of phone calls, foot traffic, and it's just difficult for one person to keep up. That would move over to the position would move over to the new jail, provide us some consistent face, consistent understanding of the things that go on at that front desk. Right now it's covered by shift personnel, so that rotates pretty, day to day and shift to shift. So if we're able to hire somebody to put in as the full-time, basically receptionist type position to increase that customer service at the front desk, and then we can supplement that with the current shift staff that covers that position as well. The volume is just to the point where it's very difficult for one person to keep up with the peak volumes at the front desk.
Questions?
Of course.
Commissioner Bed, oh, sorry. We'll go with Commissioner Karski and then Commissioner Benega.
For that position, I'm thinking from my background in insurance and work comp and that type of thing. Usually you have a return to work program, light reduced work, somebody that couldn't go back to being a correctional officer. Is this the type of position that you can transition a person back to work?
As far as like a light duty position?
Yes.
Yes, it would. Yes is the short answer, but we typically, with our current light duty personnel, will put them on one of the unit controls where they run the doors and the security electronics on the particular floor, or they can work in master control. So with the addition of the new jail, we'll have 3 separate unit control posts as well as 2 in master control. This front desk position we're looking for is really to provide some consistency to that front desk. There's a wide range of questions and interactions that come in that it would be nice to have somebody in that position who works it every day, and when people are coming in and asking these questions, they get a consistent message. When we rotate staff through there, there's a lot of these things that come up that the rotating staff don't know the answers to, and then people get inconsistent answers. It also it'll help us address the volume. There's a lot of times when the volume of phone calls that are coming into that front desk overwhelm the officer working there, and then they roll over into master control. I'm not a huge fan of master control focusing on phone calls when they have the volume of traffic inside the jail that I'd rather have them monitor.
Appreciate it. You answered both questions, and I'm glad to hear you have a
All right.
return to work program that way. Thank you.
Commissioner Benega?
Jeff, just a quick question on, excuse me, the correctional systems operator has a base salary of about 35, and then the estimated cost is 55 about. That's about a 65% increase over the base, and I'm assuming there's no car involved in
No,
that.
there is not.
So why would there be a 65% benefit package, so to speak?
I don't have an answer for that for you off the top
Harry
of my
Deaver
head.
might, however. So,
It's OSI, STRS.
Oh, thank you.
15,000 for health and dental insurance.
basically the retirement benefit.
The benefit package.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome, I was able to get it answered right away. Anything else?
Other questions?
All right.
All right, thank you. Okay, so next up is the state's attorney, Crystal Johnson, who I saw earlier, so I believe is out there somewhere. Hi.
Hello, good afternoon. Usually I say good morning, good afternoon. My name's Crystal Johnson. I am the Minnehaha County State's Attorney. This year I requested 1 legal office assistant position for our office to help kind of get us up to speed, help us get caught up. As we talked about before, I've reorganized the office into our felony divisions. One of the things that our attorneys spend a lot of time doing are non-legal work, whether we are missing files If it's something that went into court yesterday, got passed to today, we end up spending a lot of time looking for files that if we were adequately staffed in the front end, it would be things that we wouldn't have to spend so much time on. Our legal office assistants answer the phones. They print off in the morning, they print off all the police reports of people who are in custody for our attorneys to review. Our digital technicians and our investigators print off the NCIC report, which is a criminal history, because a lot of times in charging decisions, we got to know what their history is to know whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony charge. So then our legal office assistants have to match all of those up. They get them to the appropriate people who are making the charging decisions that day. They get them returned to them, and then they have to have everything filed, typed up and filed with the clerk of courts by 10:30 in the morning. We currently have 10 legal office assistants. 2 of them work solely with the A&N division, working on abuse and neglect cases, which involves getting paperwork filed, submitting notices for parents, putting notices in proper publications that have the A&N pending. One of them works solely with our juvenile division. I believe our juvenile division, as of last month, had 1,700 open files. We have 168 open open A&N cases. And then the other 7 LOAs are designated for the adult criminal prosecution, and then our civil LOAs. Our felony legal office assistants each are assigned 5 attorneys, except for the one who does grand jury preparation. And so they average approximately 2,000 files for their 5 attorneys. Most of our attorneys carry somewhere, I'm on the low end of 176 open files, and then we have attorneys who have upwards towards 700 open files. And so then they have to work on getting discovery provided. If there's any legal paperwork that needs to be filed, they prepare that and get that ready to go. They help locate cases when they get ready to go into court. Every single day we have at least 3 courtrooms going between first appearances. Then we have a pretrial conference courtroom, and then we kind of have a plea and sentencing courtroom. So we have 3 courtrooms that we have going every single day, that we have to make sure we have all the files ready to go on those. And so then it's pulling files, getting all that information on top, and then still dealing with the public, still answering the phone, still working with the attorneys. And so when we look at kind of the overall office structure, that's one of the holes that I think is probably most glaringly obvious. We have 2 paralegals who actually do advanced clerical work, advanced legal office assistant work with circuit court, docketing files, and preparing those judgments. And it would be nice if we could focus them on doing paralegal work and assisting the attorneys, and then being adequately staffed for legal office assistant.
Commissioner Benega.
Crystal, how many open files do you have total? I mean, you gave us some numbers, but I can't add that quick.
No, but if I had to look, if I can do my math quickly, I would say our criminal files that we have open as of last month when we read the numbers is somewhere between 8,500 and 9,000 cases.
Thank you.
We started jury trials this week, so hopefully we can start whittling that down.
Other questions? Okay. All right, I think that's it.
Okay,
Oh, Commissioner Heiberger, I couldn't tell if you were trying to ask a question or not.
See if that was the end, but I apologize if I wasn't listening in the beginning, but who is talking about the juvenile diversion office coordinator in the state's attorney's office? No one?
we have, the juvenile diversion coordinator is not a new position.
I know, but it's on grant funded, and so I didn't know if anybody was speaking to it, or are we just gonna just go for the flow, and I don't care, but I know where I am, but
So, to Crystal's benefit, you know, she was really probably, and this would be my bad, told to talk about new positions she was requesting.
Okay.
And so, you know, the issue, and I appreciate that we pulled out all these positions, these grant-funded positions this year, so we could all keep better track of them, because they are all challenging in the sense that they all seem like a good idea, and a particularly good idea when somebody else is paying for them. But then when we run into a situation where they may or may not be funded again, which is where we are with several of these positions right now, whether we can keep them or not. And I guess, Kim, does the budget you provided this morning, does it include any of the grant-funded positions? That's what I thought. Yeah, so they're already included, and right now we're really focusing on whether we'd add new positions in or not.
Thank you
So,
for the clarification.
And I know we had applied for the one, I think that would be under the sheriff's office, the adult diversion coordinator that we had applied for, and I don't think we've heard word on that grant at this point with the public and safety challenge.
That's for the next round of money.
Okay.
Thanks, Crystal.
all right, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming down. Okay, so that takes us to the Public Defender's Office, and I know Tracy Smith is here as well. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Tracy Smith, Public Defender's Office. For the 2021 budget, we are asking the commission to authorize us to hire one deputy public defender, one paralegal, and authorization to promote one attorney to a senior trial attorney position and promote one of our paralegal positions to a senior paralegal position. This morning, when I was listening to the overview, it was mentioned that I believe our personnel growth since 2011 has been 27%. And I would like the opportunity to put that number into perspective and mention that in the last 10 years, our caseloads have increased by 45%. And overall, our cost per case, when you look at our overall budget, in the last 40 years, our cost per case has remained steady at $376 per case. It is imperative when we consider when our office can't handle cases and outside private counsel has to be appointed, that cost is significantly higher and jumps up at a cost per case of $1,216 per case. Drug cases in the last 10 years have increased by 268% in Minnehaha County. And in terms of public safety and ensuring that we are providing an efficient and effective delivery of services, our office is providing an effective service to the public, and our department is only 11% of the amount of funds that are going towards public safety. In addition to what we're providing to each of our clients on an individual basis, our office is also providing representation to all of the alternative courts, drug court, DWI court, Veterans Court, and now mental health court as of this year, with no additional funding at the state level, no additional funding that goes into how we calculate cases. We are very happy with these are very important courts. We're happy to provide that service, but by providing that service, we are reducing numbers to the county jail, and we are providing additional savings to the state, specifically through the Department of Corrections, by reducing the number of people that go to the prison. So I do understand and recognize that we are asking a lot by asking the commission to approve both of these positions. Given the limitation that the commission has right now, if it comes down to choosing, we would ask the commission to consider stagger starting, maybe to consider authorizing us to start the paralegal position in January, and then maybe due to, with the situation with the bar exam, the students often get their results in March and September, maybe authorizing us to start the attorney position later in the year instead of simply saying you only get one. We are willing to consider that. We have, because of the COVID pandemic situation, we have held off on hiring positions when we haven't had an immediate need, when the court system was slow, and when we want to have interns that we really, really like. We have in the past held off on hiring students until they get their bar results. So we do feel that that would be a viable option instead of not authorizing both of those positions. From our annual report in 2019, we do base our request for positions on that report. We do currently have 26 attorneys. In that report, we projected a need for 36 full-time positions based on our caseload. So we do feel that limiting our request to one attorney and one paralegal is recognizing the limitations that the county has right now with the current financial constraints. The concern that we have is also if we are not providing adequate staffing, the problem is habeas cases go up. If we are not providing quality representation, clients get upset, they ask the court to appoint the public advocate's office and we have to withdraw, or they file an application for habeas corpus and then those cases drag out longer, and then the post-conviction matters can be very time-consuming for both the civil division for the state's attorney's office, and so things have to be done twice or much longer. So it is much more cost-effective if we have sufficient time to visit with our clients, to talk to them, to make sure that their needs are being met. And as representatives of Minnehaha County, we want to make sure that we're representing clients the way they should be represented. As far as the promotional requests, we have changed, as Crystal indicated, we have made changes as to how we assign cases. We have a felony violent division. We also have a nonviolent division. It's helped with how we train new attorneys when they're coming up to start felonies for the first time so that they aren't automatically assigned to violent felonies where people are facing life in prison. We've also assigned senior trial attorneys to supervise each of those divisions so that they have better training in each of those divisions. With the request for the additional senior trial attorney position, because we are working with so many specialty courts now, with the drug court, the DWI court, it just makes much more sense to have a supervising attorney helping out to ensure that we have best practices and standards and procedures in place so that each of the attorneys on those courts are following the same protocol. Any questions?
Questions for Tracy?
Not for Tracy, but maybe for Kim, if I could.
Okay.
Kim, are the increases to deputy or to senior trial attorney and to supervisor, are they factored into one of those?
No.
Not factored into any of our assumptions then?
No.
Okay.
They were treated just like a new position request, and they are excluded from the projections right now.
Full amount or just for the increase?
The increase amount.
Just the increase, okay. What are those increases, do we know?
They're on that slide that Carrie provided this morning. If you
Okay.
go,
Total about 15,000.
Yeah.
There were three
Okay,
proposed
okay,
reclassifications.
okay.
Tracy, to reclassify the attorney was $4,255, and for the reclassify the paralegal, it was $3,054.
And that's not factored into either, or no, it is factored into the original requested amount.
They're considered
All-
like new positions.
Yep,
It's
okay.
money
So
we have to add in.
then for Tracy, you are saying that you could live with, or it would be acceptable to add a position for an attorney later in the year? How late in the year? Are we talking August, September?
Yes, if it were to come down to needing to wait until later in the year, given the bar exam, since we usually wait on hiring around the bar exam anyway,
Okay.
we would do that.
September is when they would be getting their results back, whether they
Right.
pass the bar.
So one thing that, and Commissioner Heiberger and I are aware of this, but maybe I shouldn't be letting the cat out of the bag or our strategy, but our specialty courts aren't funded by the state legislature, and everybody else's are. And it's because we took the lead and showed that it could work, and they said, well, you don't need it because you guys are doing it. Kind of, sort of. Well, we don't think that's quite fair, so we're going to be trying, because it's going to take a legislative fix to get money through the UJS from the legislature to fund our specialty court, which is the equivalent of one full-time attorney.
It's about, didn't we decide it was about 65,000, so it's not quite one full attorney?
Just about.
But, yes, they're paying for that legal representation at Public Defender's Office for the other counties that use them, but not for us. We're the only ones that are not getting funded.
Do they fund the state's attorney's office
No,
then?
just the public defenders who are representing those people in the specialty courts.
So, you know, we're trying to work through a legislative approach to get more funding to take care of that position, which would help reduce some of the budget constraints of adding this person to the public defender's office. So, kind of an FYI, I guess, for everybody to be aware of.
But at the earliest, that would likely not be here until
Next July,
July,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, 'cause, yeah, it's
So half
typically,
of next year.
and that's why I asked
Under the
about
best
the,
of circumstances,
yep,
okay.
the implementation of that, so.
So legislatively, I mean, I've talked to Craig a little bit to Carol about it, and this would be a Minnehaha County bill. We'd have to get one of our own representatives here to sign on to a bill for us, because the association won't do it, because we're the only ones that aren't getting it, and so it's a specialty for Minnehaha County, so we can't get support from SDACC as far as the whole association, because it only affects us.
Even Pennington's getting funding.
Even Pennington's getting funded. In fact, they were the first ones that came out and said, we can't do this because you aren't giving us any money, so. So anyway, it's in the talks, so we're looking at that.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
This is
Commissioner
Joe.
Barth.
could we change the screen so I can see the positions being requested? All I'm seeing is the munis stuff here.
Okay, we'll pull up Carrie's slide from this morning. Or
Thank
that's
you.
what- At least that's what I'm looking at. I think that's
I am too.
helpful. All right, are there other questions for Tracy? Commissioner Barth, did you think you'll have questions for Tracy after we find this slide for you?
No, thank you very much, but I might call her later.
Okay,
All right.
she will
Thank
look
you.
forward to that.
Have a good day.
All right, thank you, Tracy. All right, so the next item is a elections position requested by the auditor's office. I think Carol's gonna come up. I understand the auditor might be ill today.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Carol Muller. Yes, Auditor Litz is out today. He has put in a request for a senior tech person, I believe. Is that the correct title for it? I guess I really can't speak to that at all. We know that elections fall every other year, so 2020 has been a heavy year for that. The next time will be 2022 and then 2024 when there's a presidential election.
So he's asking for an election position for next year when there are no elections. So, all right, so that takes us to 5, which is the treasurer's office.
Madam Chair, can I ask a quick question about the auditor?
Yes,
This is Jeff. So don't we have cross-training going on in that department so that Heather is not the only one that's an election specialist, is she? Or
you know what, yeah, I think we should, any questions about that probably need to go directly to the auditor. And so if he's back tomorrow, maybe we'll invite him to come in and visit a little bit about that, so.
you?
Hi, how are
Hi,
you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good.
I guess I'll start to tell you what we need, and that means we probably need 5 employees, but I asked for 1. That's how much growth there's been in this county in the 15 years that I've been here. We have about one additional staff person in the 15 years I've been here. Quite frankly, we need an additional person to answer the phone, so then we'd have 2 people that did nothing all day that were answering the phone. Right now, we have 3 people who could answer the phone, but most of them are doing their other jobs, and only one is really assigned officially to doing just the phone. And I know that you've been receiving calls about the phone length, as I have. And if you've noticed, we've had anywhere in the last, after you reopen, 4-hour lines to 3.5 to the average is about 2 to 2.5 hour lines in our office. So I think we need an additional person for phones. We need an additional person, 2 people to fill in at the window. So we got the wait time. When I started, it was between 2 and 3.5 hours, and we got it down to 15, 20 minutes or less with basically the same amount of staff. But we made some other changes that made us more efficient. But there's only so efficient that you can be. And I think we've maxed out the efficiency that you can get, so I think you're gonna just have to start having a few more people there to answer it. We need a couple people that would be, because at the window, we have, everybody gets the 2 15-minute breaks, everybody gets an hour for lunch, but in order to keep that wait time down to 15, 20 minutes or less, then you have to have 12 windows going at all times. And we've been able to do that by taking the back office people, and they don't get their stuff done then, to fill in at the window so the public doesn't have to bear the brunt of the short staffing that we have currently. So we need 5 people, like I said, but if you give me 1, we'll try to make that work. And then you're gonna have to give me 1 again next year and the year after that, because you need to catch up. And if you look at, we figure there's about, I have a whole bunch of numbers about the population growth and the number of parcels if you want those. But generally speaking, we are just understaffed. You have the same staff that we had when I came. And that's just enough to not enough to accommodate the growth. Like, for example, we worked Saturday, but we weren't open to the public. We had to do the mail because we didn't have anybody to do mail. I did mail all day. The deputy treasurer did some mail, and we have our tax and license supervisors that were doing the mail, but we still couldn't keep up. When we were shut down, we got way behind, and because everybody had to do everything by mail. So if you come to my window and you do a transaction, we can tell you right there and then if you are missing a signature on your title, or if you don't have your title application, you can fix that thing right away. But if we don't get to that for 6 weeks, and then you find out, and we have to, if you don't give me a telephone number that works, your voicemail isn't set up, or your voicemail is full, then we have to mail it back, and then you have to get what you need. And we did send out to some people a list of things that they might, if you wanted to do this or that, what you would have to have with you to do it, hoping that would help some. We do try to write. Now, I go out and if I'm not doing it, then sometimes both of us are doing it, but we try to go through the people's paperwork as they stand in line, so they find out sooner rather than later that they don't have what they need. So I guess my faith is in your hands.
Questions for the treasurer? Commissioner Benega.
Pam, just one question I can think of right now.
Okay.
Do you keep track of the internet growth of people who have applied for the licenses or tax?
Yep. It's
The growth of that
Yeah, it's
versus
about-
what it was?
It was about 10% when I came, and it's about between 10 and 13% right now. One thing that makes the difference there, I think, is we have a high concentration of elderly people in South Dakota, and those people prefer to do business other than on the internet. But I think as the population changes a little bit, that will change a little bit too, but it stayed about the same.
If you could get those to us, I would question that latter statement you made. I know in my other job, almost all of our elderly clients are now using Zoom to sign their wills and doing all of their work electronically. So I think there's a bit of a learning curve there, but I think if we encourage people that they are willing to use and are actually happier doing that, because then they aren't forced to come down in person and possibly expose themselves to health conditions that are very concerning for them. So I think all people are willing and able to do it. It's a matter of us encouraging folks and making sure they're aware of those options.
And we encourage them all the time, but
If you could get us the statistics about the growth, I think those numbers are really surprising to me, so I'd like to see the growth in the use of online opportunities in particular.
Well, last I
for-
checked, it was around a little over 10%, and that's about what it was when I came. But we do everything, they know they can do it online. They also can use the self-serve kiosk. They can do it by mail. But if you want to use a self-serve kiosk, the only thing you can do there would be a renewal. And everything in your file has to be absolutely correct. The state's records have to be absolutely correct. That means they have to have a current address, they have to have a current driver's license, and those things aren't always accurate. So then you can't work at the self-serve kiosk. But still, when I was out in the line, like in the last couple of weeks, most of the people there are title transfers. And that's in part because the interest rates are so low on new vehicles. So people are buying new vehicles, and that's why you have so many title transfers. Like, we did 514 title transfers on Saturday. We did 412 on Friday, and 200 and some on Thursday. So the average was, before this, was around 212.
Commissioner Heiberger.
So title transfers can be mailed in, they don't have to stand in line for them?
Well, they can be.
So that'd be another thing we should push. Don't stand in line for 4 hours if you can mail it in, because that
problem
makes
is
it better for us, too.
That it's a very complicated process, and people don't always have what they need. If you come to the window and you don't have your title signed, or if you don't have a title application, the clerk can print off the title application, you can sign it, you can sign the back of the title. If you send it in by mail and you didn't get that, then it takes us to process that the first time, then it has to be mailed back to you, or we try to get you on the phone, and you would have to send a blank check or credit card information, which a lot of people aren't willing to do. I mean, because you'd make the check out to the Minnehaha County and don't fill in the amount.
I wouldn't
Because
wanna
you
blank
won't know
check
how
either.
many taxes and things you're gonna pay. So it's not probably, for involving title transfers, the best way to do business.
It sounds like a technology thing could work this out, though, so that
Well,
you
it
could go
doesn't,
on
but-
and explain it on internet, and that you should be able to type in the numbers and it would come up with what your tax. I mean, there's gotta be a way to do that. I'm not technologically smart enough to do that, but there's gotta be somebody that you could just figure that out. You can amortize your interest rate on your home, as you'd think you could figure out your taxes on your vehicle if it was new.
It depends on a lot of things. That's the problem. And plus, if you do it that way, you have to give some, I don't know, most people aren't comfortable giving up their title, because if the title gets lost in the mail or whatever, then you have to go, it's a difficult, lengthy process to go get a duplicate and get your title again, and you have to have it before you want to sell the vehicle or whatever. So, for whatever reason, people are preferring to do business the way they do. And we have a lot more of titles right now backed up because of the weeks that we were closed, and people did do that, and well, then we have to get a hold of them, we have to let them know what they didn't do, what they need. We sent out papers trying to tell them that, but, you know, it's just kind of complicated.
I would say that you do have really good information on the website, so
Yes, we
folks
do.
should be able to go through that and see exactly what they needed to do for a title. And I would also say that when I've encouraged folks to check out the kiosk, and when I used it myself, I was shocked how easy it was and thrilled that I was able to do it so quickly. So I think that is a really great alternative for a lot of people who are just renewing. So.
Yeah, and it's helpful in that regard, but like I said, you have a whole lot of title transfers, and that you cannot do as easily. You can do it, most people aren't comfortable doing it. And then it is a little more expensive, because if you do it by credit card, then you would have to, they charge you the 2.35% in addition, and the mailing fee.
Cheaper than 2 hours in line.
I mean, everybody has choices. I mean,
Yes, they do.
people have choices.
I
We just
agree.
want to make sure that everybody knows their choices.
Yeah, when we try
So-
to tell people that.
Are there other questions for the treasurer while she's here? All right, thank you.
Sure, thank you.
All right, so that takes us to, we're ahead of schedule. And the next item is commission identification of additional departments or outside agencies to present. I'm listed as the person here, and so all that means is I'm looking at the rest of you, and are there any, Commissioner Heiberger?
The only one I would ask is that we just get an answer to that question from the courts, is the fees decreasing, court fees decreasing. That's the only question that I've come up with today. And I don't know that you have to have a presentation, just need to have a response.
Okay. Can we delegate that to you, Carol, to reach out to Carl? Thank you. Anybody else have Commissioner Karski?
I received from the director of Makita Lakita, we pay $5,000 to the org, and I just hate to see Lincoln County being more supportive than us. They pay $8,900 to the organization, so.
My response to that would be if we tried to compete with the city on every single thing the city did, then that's not a fun game to play for us.
Nope, not the city. This is Lincoln County paying it to their organization, and
there have to be better reasons for us to increase our contribution to Makita Lakita than that, but that's my own personal opinion.
I think for many years, Lincoln County's had way more financial money, better situation than we have for a long time.
Other questions? So Commissioner Barth, I have a text message from you that I don't quite understand. I'm not sure exactly what it is you're looking for.
Madam Chair, that was resolved earlier. I just was looking at the stuff about Munis and not looking at the list of employees that were wanted.
Perfect. Sorry that I was not paying closer attention to your text. So I'm glad we got it straightened out for you. Other questions? Other people we'd like to? Commissioner Karski, were you suggesting that you wanted Makita Lakita to come in?
well, not to come in. Jesse was here last week. I mean, it's hard to argue what we gained from our membership in Makita and for economic development, and is the need there? You could always argue the need is there and present. I'm just arguing for more of an issue of fairness, I guess, that we should be contributing our fair share to the organization.
Okay. So any other additional documents or outside agencies that people would like to hear from? We're gathering this information because we're gonna invite those folks to come tomorrow if there is anybody else that people would like to hear from.
Madam Chair, Jeff again.
Commissioner Barth.
If we can look at the numbers suggested by these different organizations and come up with our own decision without them coming in, right? I mean,
absolutely.
For example, the fair ones, I have concerns about their situation with the lack of activity. I have an interest in funding ambulance at a slightly higher level, not necessarily what they're asking, but we don't need them to come in to on their knees to beg for help, do we?
No, I know. I mean, I think we did we've tried hard to plan the information that was provided today and tomorrow, but we also wanted to make sure that all the commissioners had a chance to ask for additional information if they were feeling a need for that. And so, anyway, we have made the ask, and if you guys think of something, before the, kind of close of business today where we could still get a hold of people, we will gather that information for tomorrow. And if not, then we will look for the information from the courts and we'll proceed. So, thank you. All right, so that takes us to Kim. And Kim's gonna vet out a little bit more the bonding projects that we discussed briefly this morning. At least the idea of bonding we discussed this morning. So do we have slides on Dropbox for this, Kim?
Yes. Well, we'll just be referring back to the slides that were in the second PowerPoint, the other requests.
Okay, from this morning.
Right. So I just need to find that PowerPoint.
Madam Chair, it's Jeff here. I certainly have reviewed the stuff on Dropbox, but while I'm on the Zoom call, I can't go over to Dropbox myself. Now, I do have a second laptop, but at this point, have not unlimbered it today.
Well, Kim's gonna pull up the slides that we're gonna talk about. You should be able to see them on Zoom.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you need to,
Probably in the top one there,
Oh, here.
Yep.
Sorry, okay.
but I don't know which one it is here.
yeah, that you're in the agenda, so you want to go back and get. Commissioner Barth, it sounds like there's a train going by your house.
Oh, this is every.
I'm surprised if you're getting it from me, but I do kind of whistle tunelessly, so maybe that's what it is.
I think that's the only thing, there's only 8 items in that list, so it's not giving you a scroll bar. 'cause
Okay.
There's no more to go down to, so it's.
So, how do I get to them?
It's item 2. You want to be in item 2.
The double click
Well,
on.
Budget
Is it-
view, other requests.
thank you. Yeah, there's the one, thank you.
It's the only thing that I've been able to do today so successfully, so.
Okay. So, sorry for that delay. We're just gonna revisit a little bit of what we talked about today about our outstanding debt, what our debt service costs are, and then how a bond issue would impact, what the financial impact of a bond issue would be. So I'm gonna refer back to the graph I'm displaying here, the 2021 financing scenarios. And this is just showing that at the various bonding levels, we would not impact the building fund levy at all, but we would have varying amounts of additional cash available in the building fund to fund cash projects versus those projects that we would choose to bond for. And the projects that we would, coming out of the facilities task force recommendations, those projects that they recommended we consider bonding for would include the new highway facility and then the remodeling of the administrative building and extension building, just to accommodate for staff expansion in the attorney's offices primarily. Oh, and also the chillers to create some redundancy with the new jail expansion building.
Commissioner Heiberger.
So we won't make a decision on the dollar amount of those bonds until we have all the estimates in of all the different projects we want to do this time around. I'm getting a yes and a no, so.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I think, I know Commissioner Karski has some thoughts on this as well, because we've talked about it briefly, but COVID put us behind on
Yes.
getting these numbers. And we're currently in a very good low interest rate bond environment. We have preliminary numbers, so we know in the ballpark of where we are. And I think that is why we have been tossing around the idea of a $20 million bond, is that while it might not be totally perfect, it's pretty close to where we think we're going to be with the projects that Kim itemized.
Good.
Sorry.
I was just going to add in that we do plan on for the highway department doing CMAR, construction manager at risk, which is what we did with the jail. And that GMP does not come in until the whole thing's been designed. And so that could be,
February?
I was going to say 9 months. That's probably not that far away from there. And probably, the one thing you will see us recommending, if I can speak so boldly for Kim, is that those bonds should be sold this year. So we would be doing that this year, and we'll talk a little bit more about that during building committee.
Okay.
Because we've already put Tegra under contract. We'll get the highway architect under contract in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And then bringing the construction manager at risk on contract, and then starting the contract. So, as we know, there's about a year's worth of bills to pay before we actually go on the ground.
Commissioner Karski.
You know, I guess a couple of things. One, Kim, I think you can answer this. If we bond, we have, 18 months to start tapping the proceeds of that money for the project? Is that the right time frame?
That sounds correct. I know we have 5 years to use it.
Spend it all.
Correct. And we can reach back 60 days for actual construction costs, and we can also reimburse ourselves for any soft costs, architects, engineers, those types of design costs leading up to the award of a construction contract.
Okay. And then, let's say we bond 20 million or pick a number, and we only end up using 18 of 20. Can we prepay that, or how does that work?
We would be required, we either have to use those proceeds for the intended project, or we pay those proceeds back towards the principal on the bond.
And then the third and final question, I believe, from the jail project, we bonded 40 million, whatever that meant. Yep. And we didn't obviously spend it all at once. What was the interest rate we were receiving on that money while it was, or what kind of return, if you want to equate it to an interest rate, do you know that we got on those funds?
It's just under 2%, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
We expect that over the life of that construction period, we will have earned about $1.3 million in interest on those bond proceeds.
So if we borrow, at 2.5% and we get 1.9%, I mean, the value of that money, the interest rate on that money is really extremely minimal. So just a few points, I guess, I think are important for us to all realize.
There are arbitrage rules where you can't make money on what you've borrowed.
Yep.
But that's part of what our fund advisor monitors for us.
And, I mean, and the interest rate environment's different than it was when we did the jail. But the point is that the money is not just, we're not burying
Not
it in
idle.
somebody's backyard. We're getting
Yep.
return on it, so, unless it's my backyard, maybe. All right. Any other questions? Are there any other points you wanted to make on this?
No.
Okay.
And not
I mean,
unless
in
there
my
are
mind,
questions.
and the thing that I constantly struggle to get straight in my head is that while we call this a bond, it's, in my mind, bonds usually mean a tax increase, and that is not what we're doing here. There's already a levy in place
Correct.
for this building fund. If we don't leverage the money that we get from that levy, then we just have cash to spend right now. It's much better for the taxpayers, in my mind, to leverage it at a really low interest rate so that we can provide facilities to provide the services, to house the services that the citizens want and expect, have a right to expect from the county. So that's what we're talking about doing here.
If I may, my biggest concern is because we just don't know. I mean, we're hoping a highway department we can build for 9 to 10 million, but if it's 10 to, or if it's 11.5 million, do we not do it, or do we try to take it down, or do we try to have enough money to do it right? And that's why we hired all the people that we've hired. And I'm more concerned that we could sell ourselves short if we don't try to factor in some level of protection on the high side.
And I think we'll use our experts to get the numbers as close as we can with, with that kind of a factor for unexpected expenses or unexpected, growth in the cost of construction, so that we are as close as we can be using the expert opinions that we have, but understanding that we won't have, we won't have a contract signed with a GMP or a crystal ball that tells us exactly where the magic is.
Right. And in our estimates, we are building in a 5% contingency over and above what the preliminary estimates are. So even doing that, we're still coming in overall under that $20 million level, considering all the projects that are on the table.
Other questions? Well, thank you. It's good to kind of have that in bits and pieces for my brain. It helps me to kind of marinate in it a little bit more and make sure I'm grasping it all. Okay, so that takes us to the next item, which is ambulance funding, and Carol came to the podium, so I guess, and she's talking about it.
And I realized I left my glasses over there, so I may need to dive over to go through and read those. you know, every year we have a discussion about ambulances as to what we go through and fund in that. So, thank you. I wanted to make sure that we made sure to draw attention to that this year also. So, with that, the last year, for 2020, you approved $53,000 for Del Rapids, Garrettson, and Humboldt. And I believe in the few years prior to that, it was at $50,000. Prior to that, you've got to go back several years, but there were higher amounts that they've got out there. When you look at the requests, you have $60,000 being requested from Del Rapids, $60,000 being requested from Garrettson, $79,500 being requested from Humboldt. We did not receive an application from
Jasper?
From Jasper. Thank you very much. I wanted to bring that up. From Jasper. And MedStar chose not to submit an application. Melinda had the conversation with him. So I guess I would throw that out for any questions, any comments, any conversations that you have about ambulance funding. If you want to have additional information.
So we're getting some technical assistance up here at the commission table. Is there anybody else that had any questions? I know Commissioner Barth, you commented earlier that you had some thoughts on this, but you weren't sure you needed anybody from ambulances to come in specifically and talk about it.
Right, Madam Chair, I guess I like the increase that we gave last year, and something on that same level, I think, is what we should go for again this year. I don't know the story on Humboldt at this point, and maybe we need to ask them what their special case is, but if we were to round up and go to 66,000 or 70,000, I'm sorry, where are we at now? We're at 63,000.
We're at
right?
53,000 and they've requested 60,000.
Yeah, and I'm willing to go there, but at the same time, maybe 66 is the right number, and just basically make the same increase as we did last year.
Other thoughts? Commissioner Benega.
I would like to continue the conversation we started last year, and I don't think we ever finalized, is that it seems to me that we ought to look at funding based on units of service that they're providing, rather than just a flat grant, so to speak. And then if you look at the applications, and I haven't spent a lot of time looking at it, but some other communities have supported their ambulances at different levels by a long ways. And I think that those factors ought to be put into place in the funding formula, because right now it's fairly arbitrary, and I don't agree with that. It's just a flat grant. And maybe we could do that for just the base services of opening the door for operating costs, but I don't think we're giving the communities the fair shake, if you will. If we have a community such as Garrettson, who raises a significant amount of money from the community, and then we give them the same dollar amount as we would to Humboldt or someone else. And I'm just throwing conversation out at this point, but I would really like to be basing it on some formula rather than just an arbitrary number.
And I would say that I had talked to Jason Gierman, our emergency manager, who has agreed to tackle that and then got sidetracked by COVID. And so I agree with you. I mean, I would like very much for that. And honestly, I think that group, when they came together to work through some issues a year or two ago now, came back with a really good plan. So I'd like that group, and that's what Jason Gierman and I had talked about, to get together and come up with a plan to help us to see what they think would be a fair per unit of service, or, you know, measurement for funding. And but that just hasn't gotten done yet.
Understand, and there's also the other side of the revenue sources, with the fact, besides the community support, there's others that do a I'd say a bang-up job, that's a bad word probably, for acquiring reimbursements from Medicare and those kinds of things, because it is a diligent process that needs to happen to get those revenue sources back. We have some experience with that at the office, but I just think that sometimes we have to make sure we got our priorities right and coming down to a net unit of service on what we're gonna fund.
Right, that's why I think we kind of need the experts to help us through that a little bit and how you calculate that. But I know that billing is a big concern, a challenge for all of them.
It is.
Any other thoughts? And the problem is we're not gonna get that in place by the time we have to talk through this budget. But I do agree that that's a goal. Commissioner Heiberger.
Well, we've got until the end of September for the finalized budget, so can we put some like placeholder money in there and then just hope to have it done before September so we can actually have it? Because I agree, it's just frustrating to throw an arbitrary number in there all the time because you don't know if you're overfunding or you're underfunding or, I mean, obviously they don't have enough funds and they have the ability to go out and get ambulance districts, which we know that isn't working. I mean, as far as funding from their local areas, and that hasn't worked. But would we have enough time to get it together by September to get those numbers, since that's our finalized budget, and we could put some numbers in here and figure it out in the end?
I can follow up with Jason after a meeting today to
Got
see.
a lot going on, I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, it's stepped back a little bit now, but I'll follow up with him and see what time frame he thinks might be reasonable.
Okay.
All right, anything else on ambulances? Okay, so that takes us to a recap of the schedule and process. And we get Carol again with her glasses.
I didn't take them off this time. So today was your long day. I think we had a lot of good information. I was really pleased with the flow of information in the presentations that we all had. So tomorrow morning, following the commission meeting, we will start off, and that's your chance to hammer in, do a lot of deliberation and discussion, and start giving us discussion. Kim is ready to 10 key and take down changes, and by the time we get done with that, have an updated means of finances as to where we are at. Then our last meeting will be on June 30th. We go 2 weeks later, and we will do this again after the 9 a.m. commission meeting. We will talk about elected officials. We will review the means of finance, and if Kim has any other further, there's always one or two things that come up in the meantime for changes in means of finance. Final, or hopefully final, continued discussion on things such as building fund, staffing requests, equipment. I think staffing and equipment are probably the two major things for you guys to go through and have discussion about. We are not looking at the opt-out, or looking at having to meet a July 15th date because we have opt-out available for us. And again, what you're hearing so far is a recommendation to keep it flat on there. Then we have a provisional budget. Final review would be on July 21st with the adoption of a provisional budget July 28th with final adoption the very last Tuesday of September.
Just that easy.
Pardon?
Just that easy.
It's that easy. And if there's additional information we can provide, please let us know. We're more than happy to do that. We recognize that these are painful things to do, and whether you make the decisions now or whether you make them in September or whether you make them later on, they're tough decisions to make, no matter what the time frame is.
Commissioner Benega.
I hate to be the slow learner in this, but I'm still in my mind back at the, whatever OSI stands for, or whatever I heard in the new positions, because some of the cost, base salary versus the estimated cost, is the difference between, there's a 30% pension / benefit cost, and then there's some that are 65%.
Well, Carrie's coming up. I did have the question, and for those people who may be listening by streaming, MAKITA stands for Minnehaha County Economic Development Association.
Thank you.
And Lincoln County Economic Development Association.
Say that 3 times really fast.
If you want, I can provide you the spreadsheet of the calculations, but what we're doing for those is we're taking the base salary times the 2% matrix adjustment, assuming you do fund that, plus the 13.65% for OASI and SDRS, extra 2% if it's a Class B retirement, plus $15,000 for the E+1 insurance. So because that insurance rate is in there, you can see that the percentage is going to be a lot higher for a lower pay grade position. So when we're talking that pay grade 10 position, that's why it seems so large. And in a higher pay grade, it's not going to seem like nearly as much. But if you like, I can send you sort of the calculation on those.
No, I didn't know everybody got a flat dollar amount versus a percentage based on premiums.
Yep, for the insurance, it's just that $15,000. So,
That makes more sense now, but
okay.
not say I agree with it, but it makes more sense.
We just, and that's always an estimate, but that is the county's portion of costs for employee plus one. And that's what we've always used for budgeting, so we don't want to assume the family insurance rate, because that could be way high, single could be low, so it's a good estimate.
Could you get us the numbers for, at least me, I would like to see the numbers for family, family plus one, and whatever, single coverage?
Absolutely,
Thanks.
you bet.
You can just send it out to everybody. That'd be great.
Will do.
Thank you. Any other questions about scheduling? So tomorrow, after our regular commission meeting, we're basically going to go right into budget hearings again. Commissioner Heiberger.
Just a comment. Thank you to staff and to Jean and all you guys for doing a great job of putting this all together. Kara will attest to, I was a basket case this weekend as I was going through things until I actually got through them. And it's just really well done. And it was very, very easy to get through it. So I appreciate all the work you guys did because it was a lot.
I get no credit at all. None. So, but I agree. It is very well put together, and it really helps us to keep, our pastor this week talked about keeping the main thing, and I thought about budgeting a lot, that's really what you guys have been able to do, is help to keep us focused on the main thing by kind of taking away a lot of the extraneous detail and helping us really focus on the things that make a difference. So, in our budgeting anyway, the decisions that we have some discretion on. All right, anything else? All right, so this is our opportunity for public input. Anybody here for public input? Seeing no one rushing the podium. Apparently there's nobody out in the hall speeding down towards us. All right, so that's the end of our meeting. I'm not quite sure if I need a motion to adjourn, but I don't anticipate having any problem getting one, so I'll take one.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion and a second.
Jeff says bye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Bye, Jeff. See you tomorrow.